Hello, this is the Millbrook High School student and parent returning to school guide for Plan B families. This is the fifth and final video segment in our series of five to help our students and parents understand all the health and safety protocols for when students return on the Plan B in-person remote learning rotations. This video will first focus on experiencing symptoms on campus. Each day, students must complete daily health screenings prior to entering the building on campus. Health screenings will include a temperature check by faculty and staff and the following questions. Have you been diagnosed with COVID within the last 10 days or been in close contact with someone diagnosed with COVID over the last 14 days or been asked to quarantine by health department or other health providers? Do you have a fever or chills? Do you have a new cough that is unrelated to allergies? Do you have shortness of breath or difficulty breathing? Do you have a new loss of taste or smell? Other symptoms include a running nose, headache, sore throat, nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Students must stay at home if they will fail the daily health screening or experiencing at least one of the symptoms related to COVID 19. Students who have experienced at least one of the symptoms may not return to school until they have a negative PCR test and it has been 24 hours since they have had a fever without the use of fever reducing medicines, or they can answer yes to all of the following questions. One, has it been 10 days since the student has last had symptoms? Two, has it been 24 hours since the student has had a fever without the use of fever reducing medicine? Three, have symptoms improved, including cough and shortness of breath? If a student is experiencing symptoms during class, they will be escorted to our COVID care center. Students will remain in the COVID care center until retrieved from school by parents and remain quarantined based on previous guidelines. All siblings that attend Millbrook High School must also be retrieved and remain quarantined. Once a student has been removed from class and assigned to the COVID Care Center, students and teachers will be relocated to the collaborative space while the custodial team will immediately clean and sanitize classrooms. Upon arrival to the Care Center, which will be in 126 or 218, the supervisor and administrator on call will contact parents and guardians to inform them that a student has been relocated due to the symptoms and needs to be retrieved from school. Parents will complete the checkout process at guest services and will retrieve students on the service road by the 200 building. A staff member will be located in the care center with students at all times. Staff members supervising our care center have been trained by our Welk County Public School System's health services staff in monitoring the care center, dispensing medications needed to students assigned in the care center. Students relocated to the care center will not be permitted to ride on a Wake County Public School System transportation vehicle. Students must be retrieved by parents and guardians as soon as possible to ensure health and safety for all staff and students on campus. Students are permitted to participate in live instruction and complete classwork in the care center while awaiting parents and guardians. Any sibling of students relocated to the COVID Care Center must also return home and comply with Wake County Public School System health codes for student returns to school. Any student who has tested positive for COVID 19 or has been designated to quarantine due to exposure, close contact to a person with a confirmed diagnosis of COVID 19 must report information to school officials, which include teachers, school counselors, support staff, coaches, or administrators. Millbrook High School staff will report information to the Wake County Public School System's Health Services and to the Wake County Public Health Department when appropriate. Depending on reporting event, student must quarantine from all Wake County Public School facilities, Wake County Public School sponsored events, and Wake County Public School vehicle transportation. There are several different timelines when it comes to quarantining. Our first is a 10-day quarantine student requirement. Students will be required to quarantine for 10 days, first, if they have positively been diagnosed with COVID 19. Second, a student experiencing at least one of the symptoms related to COVID 19, or they failed their health screening, or assigned to the COVID Care Center, will also be required to quarantine for 10 days. A student may return if they are symptom free without any fever reducing medicines at least 24 hours at the end of the quarantine, or receive a diagnosis from a healthcare professional identifying the symptoms as unrelated to COVID 19, or receive a negative PCR molecular COVID 19 test. Our next level of quarantine is a 14-day required student quarantine. A student is exposed or have close contact with a confirmed case of COVID 19 will be asked to quarantine for 14 days. A student may not return prior to the 14-day quarantine, even with a negative PCR molecular COVID 19 test. The CDC outlines close contact as being within 6 feet of a confirmed case for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms of the confirmed case. For an asymptomatic confirmed case, it is the same time frame when when a PCR molecular COVID 19 test was taken by the infected person. Our last quarantine timeline is a 24-day required student quarantine. This occurs when a student who is currently living in the same household of a person confirmed with COVID 19 or experiencing symptoms, and that student is not experiencing symptoms themselves. This 24-day student quarantine includes both the 10-day time period of the infected person and a separate 14-day time period for the exposure when the infected person's initial quarantine has concluded. Students may return prior to the 24-day quarantine based on the same return requirements for anyone quarantining based on a confirmed infection or being symptomatic. Any student who has been requested to quarantine will still have access to academic work from all teachers. Parents and students must contact the teachers to request work based on student illness policy. If a student is not able to complete work based on the severity of symptoms related to COVID 19, families should concentrate on the wellness of the student. Millbrook High School will continue to work with families and teachers on completing assignments in a timely manner. For all confirmed cases of COVID 19, the Wake County Public School System is required to report those to our Wake County Public Health Department and will work with them on the follow up and any contact tracing. If a person with COVID 19 was in a Wake County Public School facility while infectious, the Wake County Public School System will coordinate with our local health officials to notify anyone who is deemed as in close contact with the infected person, while again maintaining confidentiality according to these policies and all other state and federal laws. When dealing with confirmed cases, Wake County Public Health will determine through contact tracing who, if anyone, will need to quarantine. Again, close contact is being within 6 feet of a confirmed case for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, 2 days prior to the onset of symptoms of the confirmed case. Wake County Public School Systems and the Wake County Public Health Department will work together to ensure that individuals believed to have been exposed to COVID-19 are notified. For additional information, please review this information from the Wake County Public School System, which is located on our school website. And finally, in this fifth video segment, we will be covering student accountability and required health protocols. For any student that is planning to return back on the Plan B blended learning schedule, you are responsible for knowing all of the health and safety procedures and protocols that we plan to implement here at Millbrook High School when we go back to in person remote learning rotations. Families are required to complete the student accountability and required health protocols sheet. Students should read this document and sign the acknowledgement form at the end of this document. You will also find this document in the COVID-19 information located on our school website. Forms should be returned to the first period teacher during the first week of the cohort rotation at the beginning of this semester. Students are also expected to comply with face covering requirements at all times during instructional activities, riding school vehicles, and during school sponsored events. Families may request a face covering accommodation by completing the face covering accommodation request form and give it to Mr. Flowers or Mr. Ship along with supporting medical documentation. Members of our COVID-19 school response team, along with Ms. King and the student's alpha counselor, will review all face covering accommodation requests and supporting medical documentation provided by families. This concludes not only the fifth video segment, but our series of 5 videos in related to the health and safety protocols that will be implemented at Millbrook High School when students begin the Plan B in-person remote learning rotations.